Very much, and what an honor, Glenn, that you should have been here this morning. I know that wasn't on the schedule, so thank you very much indeed. I love. What's up? I guess we each have to find comfort in our own skins. So a very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you of a great American success story. Almost 100 years ago, the 3M company began in Minnesota. It was called the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, because what they set about doing was mining carborundum, and then they figured out a way to glue it to paper, and there was the manufacturing part, and that produced something that they called sandpaper. And its primary use, this you'll remember, was the early days of the automobile industry, 1910, 1920, and a young guy from a poor background got a starting off job at 3M, the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, and his job was to go around and sell sandpaper to the car builders, cars. Well, at that point, two-tone cars were just getting popular, and he walked into a particular car shop where they were building two-tone cars, and the process was that they would glue butcher paper over the section they didn't want to paint, and then they'd spray the other part, and then they'd pull off the adhesive and put it on the other side. Well, he watched this for a little bit, and they put in their usual order for sandpaper, but instead of leaving, he noticed that when they stripped off the adhesive, it ripped off a whole part of the paint as well, and blue language filled the air as they had to go and redo those sections painstakingly by hand. And he said to himself, well, everyone's been trying to make tape that is the strongest tape imaginable. What would happen if we came up with a tape that came off easily? And he went back, and although it wasn't his job, one of the great things about the 3M company was that to this very day they encourage movement. They don't want you to just stick where you are, they want you to move. And so Dickie Drew, instead of just going out on his rounds and selling sandpaper, he stayed behind late at night fiddling with glue until he came up with something called masking tape. And that solved the problem. Well, he wasn't content to stop there, and they went on to scotch tape and adhesive tape. The company went on to produce drugs and chemicals, and everyone knows what Scotch Guard is. And because somebody wasn't content to stay where he was, in the lab he came up and invented something called Post-it notes, which totally changed the way America communicates. It's remarkable. It's a company that is dedicated to movement, and that's one of the reasons they're one of the key companies on the Dow Jones Index, and one of the companies that has just delivered stellar dividend performance over the years. Movement, that's the key thing, ladies and gentlemen. And if you think about movement, one of the great things is that God created us to be drawn to movement in the hope that we ourselves would emulate it, and we too would celebrate movement. If you think for a moment about, do you remember the Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Birds? And what a genius idea. You take the most innocuous and harmless creature imaginable and turn it into a terrifying menace. I mean, I could make a movie about a scary tiger, but to make a movie about scary birds, you have to be a genius. And how did Alfred Hitchcock convey menace? Sinister, fearful menace in that movie. And you might remember the scene. Total stationery, birds on the wire, trees not moving, nothing moving. And for 10 long seconds, that scene of total stationery, nothing. And it cut to the very core of your essence. It filled you with an aimless dread. Because if there is no motion, it's usually a sign of death. Dance. Why are we so attracted to dance? You watch people standing on a stage, nothing happens, no excitement, nothing. But as soon as they start a choreographic routine, your eyes are glued. We are drawn to motion. If you held a coil of wire near a magnet, absolutely nothing would happen. But if you started vigorously moving the coil of wire, it produces the electricity and lights up a light bulb. That's what a generator is. That's what an alternator is. You have to move, and that produces energy. And it's one of the reasons that those of you who are interested in the Bible may remember that when in the book of Exodus, where God gave instructions for the tabernacle, how you must build the altar, you must build the menorah, the candelabrum for all the lights, you must build the table. There was also something else called the Ark of the Covenant. You had to build that. Now, for 40 years they traveled through the desert, these Israelites, in a way somewhat reminiscent, and it's so exciting that here we are in Salt Lake City for this event, and why I wanted to launch it with the idea of movement, because it was movement. Unexpected and astounding movement. All the way to Salt Lake City by a group of dedicated dreamers. That's why Salt Lake City is here. People moved. And the Israelites moved through the desert to their Zion. And every time they moved, they had to break down the camp and carry all the articles of the tabernacle with them. And the way they did that was they put staves through loops on the side of the menorah, through loops on the side of the table, and through loops on the side of the altar, and through loops on the side of the Ark of the Covenant, excepting the book of Exodus specifies that when you arrive at a campsite and you're going to be there for a few months, you pull out all the rods and you make everything look permanent, with one exception. The Ark of the Covenant never must have the rods removed. Those staves that are used for carrying it must remain in position always. Why? Because the Ark of the Covenant is the heart of the Israelites. It's the constitution. And movement is the key. It should never be seen as static and stationary. Movement is everything, and everything that it's all about. And movement means what? To each and every one of us here this morning, wouldn't you agree that movement is just another word for a journey? And what is a journey? A journey is something in which today is nothing like yesterday. And a journey is something in which tomorrow is quite different from today. And I think the opportunity, certainly the opportunity that Susan and I are taking by being invited here by Glenn and to be here with you, is to really see today as the start of a new journey for ourselves. And I would like to share that with you, that today is the start of a new journey for each and every one of you in such a way so as that from here onwards, this journey could become the most vibrant, exciting, and rewarding part of your lives. And I want to tell you how that is. Because the real 3 M's that I want to talk about are not the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, but the real 3 M's are manners, marriage, and money. Let me tell you why.